Good morning, all. Welcome here to the webinar on the regulatory and quality considerations of biologics, which is organized by Parul Institute of Pharmacy, Parul University. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce Dr. M. Kalaivani, Senior Scientific Officer at Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, to speak on the topic regulatory and quality considerations of biologics. Dr. Kalaivani has completed her PhD in Pharmaceutical Sciences from the very reputed Dr. MGR Medical University, Chennai. She is the recipient of Gold Medal and Mrs. Kantayat Sadhwani Award for Best Outgoing Student in Master Pharmacy. Currently, she is Officer in Charge for Biologics Sections of Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission. This section is taking care to draft National Formulary of India for the promoting rational use of medicines in country. She is member of Scientific Expert Committee for the Recombinant Products and the Therapeutic Monoclonal Antibodies, an expert committee for the strengthening of quality control testing of enzymes and hormones laboratory at the National Institute of Biologics, Noida. She is having more than 30 national and international publications in very reputed journal to her credit. She is also a recipient of 3.15 crore grant from the Department of Science and Technology to establish a national laboratory facility for developing the quality standards for the DNA therapeutics at Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation. And now I would invite you to deliver your talk. This floor is yours now, ma'am. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Komal. Actually, am I audible to everyone? Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
You're audible.
And I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Abhay Dharamsi for giving me this wonderful opportunity to present about the activities what we are doing at IP Commission with respect to the biological development of biological monographs. And today and I thank Dr. Komal also for coordinating with me in every aspect. Thank you for that. So now let us go to this presentation. Today in my presentation, I'll be presenting about, I'll be giving a brief about regulatory and quality consideration of biotherapeutics. Like here, when we talk about biologicals, it includes immunologicals, biotherapeutics, immunotherapeutics, and blood products. So these are all the four major categories of biologicals which are used in the used for the therapeutic or prophylactic purpose in the human. So as we all know, immunologicals, it includes human vaccine, veterinary vaccines, and all vaccines and immunoserum. And veterinary vaccines, of course, it is for veterinary purpose. And when we talk about the biotherapeutics, it includes the recombinant DNA therapeutics, which had gained importance nowadays for past 10 years, and it is growing in the future also. It will be growing in the future also, and it includes recombinant DNA therapeutics. And when we talk about recombinant, there is one more category of immunotherapeutics, which we might studied in our theoretical part, like monoclonal antibodies, fusion proteins, and cellular therapies. So these things are in the market nowadays. And the next one is blood products. So all these four categories, they have a different set of regulations, and quality considerations also different. So today, for my presentation, I had taken an example of, I'll give detail about the, we cannot say detail, I'll give you brief of regulatory consideration and quality consideration for biotherapeutics. So when we talk about biotherapeutics, as we all know, it is derived from through recombinant DNA technology, and it uses a live organism as a host in which it is produced. So host cells may be animal cell or bacteria or yeast. And unlike other pharmaceutical products, biotherapeutics are larger in size. They have more than lakh Dalton in size, and they're all target specific, and it has a lesser side effect because they mimic the body proteins. So, like most of the biotherapeutics are protein in nature, and examples are given here. Like insulin is the well-known example for therapeutic protein. And apart from insulin, there are a lot of therapeutic proteins like erythropoietin, interferons, and filgrastim. So there are a lot of therapeutic proteins which are available in the market, and they are highly immunogenic. So we should take care of. We need a clinical expertise while handling these biotherapeutics. So this in this slide it shows the difference in the molecular mass. Like what is the difference? Is it is compared with the pharmaceutical small molecule aspirin. Aspirin, which is very small, and the size is shown here, which is less than 1,000 Dalton, whereas our biotherapeutics are more than a lakh Daltons in size. And the insulin, which is the first therapeutic protein which is completely characterized, and after the development of insulin, there are a lot of biotherapeutics like filgrastim, growth hormone, erythropoietin are in the market, and the current focus is on monoclonal antibodies. And when we talk about biotherapeutics, we should not miss the word this biosimilars. So we might have heard about biosimilars, and it is not exactly of a generic version of biological product. It is similar in their safety, quality, and efficacy with to that of the innovator product. See, for example, when a company comes out with particular protein therapeutic, and they are referred here as an innovator biopharmaceutical product, and the copied version of that innovator product is specified here as biosimilars. So copied version means here it is not an exact copy. We cannot say it is not a generic version of innovator product. It is a it has these biosimilar has similarity with respect to its structure, quality, safety, and efficacy. So biosimilar is the general term used globally, but there are other terminologies also used by other various regulatory authorities. Similar biotherapeutic product by World Health Organization, follow on biologics by US FDA, subsequent entry biologics by Canada, similar biologics by India, and biosimilars by European countries. So widely the term biosimilars is used, and it is taking a lead. And when we talk about biosimilars, what is the difference between biosimilars? As we all know, how a biological recombinant DNA product is produced. Here in the flow chart, I have shown the production of human insulin. As we all know, from the gene of interest is inserted into the vector, which is plasmid DNA, and that recombinant DNA is inserted into the host bacteria, and that bacteria will start producing the insulin in the culture, and that culture is collected, and it is purified, and insulin is isolated, and it is given for human. So this is very brief about to understand recombinant DNA technology. So what is this is what everywhere it is followed. So what is the difference between the innovator product and biosimilar? As I said, biosimilar is a similar version of innovator product. So vector, when we select the vector, innovator product may have different vector, biosimilar product may use different vector. And host cell expression, there is also difference in the host cell expression. And the production of protein, in case of production of protein, it should be the similar. See, if that particular host is producing insulin, or if that particular host is producing erythropoietin, then a biosimilar protein is also different techniques are used for purification and characterization of protein. So the differences here from starting from the selection of vector So where I missed, like, okay, this one, this one. Okay, okay, okay. I'm starting. So sorry for interruption. There is some technical fault. So we were discussing about
Different cell expression system, ma'am.
pardon. Pardon. From where should I start?
Okay, this one? This one?
Yes, ma'am.
This one?
No, no.
The next one?
Okay.
Yes, from here. Yes.
Okay, okay. So here in this slide, we were discussing about, am I audible to everyone? Am I audible? Komal, am I audible? Okay. Komal, am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Am I audible?
So there is a time
Yes,
lag.
ma'am.
Okay. So in this presentation,
Yes, you are audible. Yes, ma'am.
okay, okay, okay. Thank you.
Komal, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Actually, there is
Yes,
a
you
time
are
lag.
audible. You are audible, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes. You are audible,
Hello?
ma'am. Please continue. You are audible.
Okay, actually, there is some time lag, it seems.
Audible. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, I will continue. So in this slide, we were discussing about the recombinant DNA technology by which the insulin is produced. This is very simplest and well-known example where gene of interest is isolated and it is inserted into the vector, and that vector is inserted into the host cell, which is bacteria, and that recombinant bacteria is cultured in the laboratory or in the production house, and the human insulin is isolated, purified, and it is formulated for the market. So here, what is the difference between innovator product and biosimilar product? That is shown here. There is a difference in vector, there is a difference in host cell protein, host cell expression system, and the protein in downstream processing also, recovery, purification, and characterization. Everywhere the differences can be adopted by the manufacturer, but the only similarity is the protein will be the same. It is not same, it is similar. So this is what a brief difference of biosimilar and innovator product. So as my presentation covers about the regulatory aspects of biosimilars also. So the regulatory framework, it starts with the world regulation, where World Health Organization comes into the place, and they issue a set of guidelines for starting from the production of selection of gene and recombinant DNA and production. For every step, there is a set of guidelines given by the World Health Organization. And next to world regulation, the next comes our national regulations. So for India, we have National Regulatory Authority, Central Drug Standard Control Organization, and we have every state is having a state licensing authority. So these state and central licensing authorities were supported by the testing laboratories. We say it as CDL, Central Drugs Laboratory or Central Drug Testing Laboratory. And apart from these two, and these national regulatory authority also provides a set of there is an act and then a set of guidelines. So all these things to be followed for getting a marketing approval for biotherapeutics. Apart from this, with respect to biotherapeutics, we have other regulations like DBT, DST, environmental protection, and of course, similar to pharmaceutical products, we have the regulations of NPPA and CPCA. So these are all the regulatory aspects. And the pharmacopoeias, when we talk about the quality of any product, there comes the role of pharmacopoeias. So in India also we have Indian pharmacopoeia, and this is a difference uh, of Indian regulation with respect to biosimilars with that of Europe and USA. And these things I already explained. When we see about the definition of the product, a biological product or a drug produced by genetic engineering technique and claimed to be similar. As I said already, it is similar in terms of safety, efficacy, quality to a reference biologicals. So here the reference biologicals is the innovator product. And there is a qualification how to qualify a product as a reference product. So for India, it should be in India it should be licensed as a innovator product with the submission of full dossier. If it is not approved for marketing in India, it should be marketed at least in ICH countries. Then it is considered as a reference product in India. Whereas in Europe and USA, it should be licensed, or it should have a marketing authorization for that specific country. And these are all the various legislation and regulatory guidelines which needs to be followed in India for biotherapeutics. First comes the Drugs and Cosmetic Act 1940 and rules thereunder. And after that, it is supported with various guidelines, Similar Biologics Guideline 2016, which is the latest one. And there are other guidelines like for pharmacovigilance of biological product and for good distribution practice. For everything, there is a set of guideline, and this is the list of the same. And in this slide, it shows the steps which involved in the recombinant DNA product or biotherapy regulatory considerations. What are all the steps involved in the regulation of biotherapeutics? So it shows starting from the step one, like the step one, before going for R&D of any recombinant DNA product or biotherapeutic, there should be a license. There is a need for approval from state licensing authority and from institutional biosafety committee, and then RCGM, which is Review Committee on Genetic Manipulation, which is functioning under Department of Biotechnology. After receiving this, and then the manufacturer goes for product development, and step two, which is the product development, till the development of the product, the production of the product, and next step three comes once again they should apply for non-clinical trial. So non-clinical studies, before going for applying for non-clinical studies, the manufacturer should take the NOC from RCGM, and then they apply to National Regulatory Authority for approval for non-clinical trial. After completing the non-clinical trial, with the complete data is submitted to RCGM and the DPT for their recommendation to clinical trial. So along with this recommendation, complete data, non-clinical study data, and the dossier is submitted to the National Drug Regulatory Authority, which is step 4, for approval of clinical trial. After getting approval from the National Regulatory Authority, after the clinical trial starts, after completing the clinical trial, the all complete data of clinical studies, non-clinical studies, along with the dossier is submitted to the National Regulatory Authority in the step 6A for the marketing approval of that particular product. After receiving the marketing approval, manufacturer can market their product, but till 4 years, it comes under the post-marketing surveillance, where manufacturer needs to monitor its safety of the product, and for 4 years. For first 2 years, every 6 months, the report needs to be submitted, and for subsequent 2 years, every year, report needs to be submitted to the National Regulatory Authority. Here, every manufacturer, with respect to biotherapeutics, there is no lot release criteria, but here marketing authorization needs to be taken separately by each and every manufacturer from National Regulatory Authority only. and it is considered as a new drug. And this is the brief about regulatory approval pathway, which was explained, which is shown in the different way. Like in the biosimilar development, the first approval starts with Institutional Biosafety Committee and then DBT approval. As I said, recombinant RCGM approval, and then GEAC approval, which is the approval from Ministry of Environmental, Forests and Climatic Change. So GEAC stands for Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee. After the approval, then the manufacturer can go for preclinical studies with the due approval from RCGM and GLP approval and all from CDSU and DST. And then after completing preclinical studies, then they'll take approval for clinical trial from DCGI. After completing the clinical trial, the data is submitted along with the dossier. Yes. Yes. Okay. And along with the dossier to DCGI for marketing authorization. After receiving marketing authorization, as per Schedule Y of Drugs and Cosmetic Act 1940, PSUR means Post Safety Update Report. Post-marketing safety update report shall be submitted every 6 months for 2 years, first 2 years, and after approval of the similar biologics, and annually thereafter. So this is a brief about regulatory approval pathway of biosimilars in India. And there are general requirements. These are all very basic general requirements. There is if for detailed requirements, the CDSU site can be referred. So here it should be a general requirement is it should be a biologic product, and the reference product which the manufacturer is selecting should be licensed for marketing in India or in ICH countries. And the biosimilar should have same route of administration, dosage form, and strength as that of reference product. Reference product here is innovative product. And the product should demonstrate high similarity in terms of safety, quality, efficacy are important. And these similarities are demonstrated by using a set of guidelines for quality, non-clinical and clinical level. And here the approval is given based on the term totality of evidence approach. Here at the level of analytical method, a complete comparative characterization is done. Comparative means the biosimilar is compared with the innovative product at the analytical by using various analytical techniques. After that, during non-clinical study is also a comparative non-clinical study, and the clinical study is also a comparative. And then those data are submitted based on the evidence, based on the data, biosimilar approval is given. So the guideline for biosimilar, it includes these topics like scope, principle of development of similar biologics, and what are all the detailed requirement of reference biologics, what are all the manufacturing consideration, quality consideration, prerequisite for preclinical studies, clinical studies, and post-marketing data for similar biologics. So very to brief about this, these guidelines applicable to similar biologics that contain well-characterized proteins which are derived from recombinant DNA technology, and they are characterized by using various analytical methods, preclinical and clinical studies in comparison with reference product. And these complete data is submitted to regulatory authority for the approval of marketing authorization. And if there is any difference identified in terms of safety, efficacy, and quality, and this will not qualify for the similar biologics or biosimilar approval, and this will go as a separate product, and it needs other complete set of data to prove its safety, efficacy, and quality. And if a reference biologics is having more than one indication, biosimilar will also qualify for all the indications, but for that sufficient data needs to be submitted for all the indications. And here, when we are talking about similar biologics and innovative product or biosimilars and innovative product, there comes a question that whether we can interchange the biosimilars with that of innovative product. No, it should not be. If a regulatory authority approves for interchangeability, then that can be used, that can be interchangeably used. Otherwise, it should not be. To explain this particular aspect, here I have given an example of rituximab. In India, we have 6 brands of rituximab, biosimilar rituximab, and one innovator rituximab available in India. And here, rituximab is used for treatment of chronic lymphocytic leukemia. And as we all know, for this treatment, it needs a longer duration. And here, rituximab is given for every 28 days into 6 cycles. So here, for first day, if a patient is given with the innovator product, for the second dose, can it be interchanged with the biosimilar product, since the biosimilar comparatively cost effective? Can it be used? No, it should not be used. If a regulatory authority gives a separate approval for its interchangeability based on the data, then that biosimilar can be used for interchangeably with that of innovator product. That is also lies with the expertise of the clinician. We it should not be used interchangeably unless otherwise if they are given the approval for interchangeability. So such type of approval is not given in any other country except US FDA. US FDA prescribes a detailed guideline for getting approval for this interchangeability also. That's all brief about the regulatory part of biologics, biosimilars. And now let us start with the quality part. So when we talk about quality of any product, there is a need for standard. So that standard includes, what is that standard? It is a document that provides requirements, specification, guideline, and characteristic that can be used consistently to ensure the material, product, process, and services are fit for this purpose. So that means it gives a shared vision and a procedure. And as you say, a quality standard means it gives a defined set of guidelines, defined set of specification and requirement for a product to qualify for the purpose. And when we talk about the quality standard for drugs and pharmaceuticals, there comes the role of pharmacopoeia. So every country in the world, they have their own pharmacopoeia. And there are more than 50 pharmacopoeias in the world, which can be referred through the link which is shown here, or it is freely available. It is for easy access to common public in the WHO site. And as per the definition of pharmacopoeia, as per the definition of World Health Organization, pharmacopoeia is a legally binding collection of standards and quality specifications for medicine used in the country. As of the definition, Indian Pharmacopoeia is also a legally recognized book of standards for drugs as per Drugs and Cosmetic Act. British Pharmacopoeia, which is legal as per the Act, prevails in the Britain, and USP as per the Act prevails in the US. Yeah. And this is what is the place of Indian Pharmacopoeia in Indian drug regulatory system. The second schedule says standards of identity, purity, and strength specified in the edition of Indian Pharmacopoeia for time being in force, and such other standards as may be prescribed. So the current edition of Pharmacopoeia prescribes the standards for identity, purity, and strength for any drug, which includes the biological drug also. Apart from that, how to use a letter IP, where to use the letter IP, what are all the manner of labeling, everything is as per Indian Pharmacopoeia is shown in these Drugs and Cosmetic Act and rules. Rule 124 gives the standards of drug. If not in current edition, immediately preceding edition of IP can be used. If a particular monograph is not available in the current edition, only immediately preceding edition will become official, not all previous editions. And how a letter IP can be abbreviated, that is shown in the Rule 104. And what are all the requirements of labeling, that is shown in the Rule 96. The name of the drug as per the name which is specified in the Indian Pharmacopoeia. And when we say Indian Pharmacopoeia, there comes the role of Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, which is a scientific institute under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, publishes established for publishing the Indian Pharmacopoeia. And apart from publication of Indian Pharmacopoeia, IPC also publishes National Formulary of India for promoting rational use of medicine. It acts as a national coordination center for pharmacovigilance program of India and analysis of new drugs. When a dossier is submitted to CDSCO, National Regulatory Authority, the the drug sample comes to IPC for testing purpose. And apart from publishing Indian Pharmacopoeia, as we all know, if any analytical method needs to be performed, there is a need for reference standard. So that reference standard is also certified and supplied by Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission in the name of Indian Pharmacopoeia Reference Substances. And this is the Services of Indian Pharmacopoeia, publication of Indian IPC, Services of Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission. It publishes Indian Pharmacopoeia. To fulfill the intended purpose of monograph in Indian Pharmacopoeia, it provides reference standards, and it publishes National Formulary of India. And IPC also acts as a National Coordination Center for Pharmacovigilance Program of India. And when we talk about Indian Pharmacopoeia, there comes a question, based on what criteria the monographs are developed or monographs are deleted from Indian Pharmacopoeia. These are all the inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria based on which our expert committee decides to include monograph for a particular drug or to exclude the monograph. So those inclusion criteria are drugs which are in national health programs, drugs listed in National List of Essential Medicines, drugs approved by CDSCO, fixed dose combinations approved by CDSCO and recommended by IPC, and drugs approved by IPC. And if a drug is banned in India, that monograph will be deleted immediately. And if there is some obsolete drug monographs, those will be deleted. And this is a brief about what are all the editions of Indian Pharmacopoeia. And the edition 1 till 4 was published by IP Committee. And in the 2009, IP Commission was established. And after establishing the IP Commission, from addendum, now IP 18, which is the 8th edition. So 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th editions by Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission. And what is the role of Indian IP standard? Because these standard, it gives independent assessment of identity, quality, strength, and purity. Whoever analyzes the product, whoever tests that particular product, they will follow the IP method for identifying its purity, quality, and strength. And these quality standards are at par with international quality standards. Therefore, the quality of the product is also at par with international standards. And there is a uniform scope, uniformity in the testing from production till consumption. Whoever tests that product, they'll be testing as per IP standards. And which gives, because of which the quality drugs to the patient, and it reduces the adverse effect due to substandard drug. And since the quality is uniform, there will be a uniform costing also. And when we talk about the quality standards for biotherapeutics, as we all know, biotherapeutics are naturally complex. It never consists of a single moiety. Whereas a small molecule, API of a small molecule, it is homogeneous, highly pure, highly reproducible from lot to lot, and analytical tests are easy and precise, and even low level of impurities can be detected in the small molecule API. Whereas in case of protein therapeutics, the API itself is heterogeneous, and lot to lot variability is certain, and analytical tests also, there is a variability in the analytical tests also, and those cells are often not sensitive. Like bioassays, there might be a difference. And so by considering all these criteria, based on the by considering the heterogeneous nature of these protein therapeutics, biotherapeutics, quality parameters are considered for developing the in the pharmacopoeia monograph. So a heterogeneous nature here, the product related substance, that means in a molecule, in an API, or in a formulation, there will be a product related substance, there will be a presence of product related substance. That means protein variants, but they may have a similar biological activity to that of parent molecule. So such type of variants needs to be identified. And in fact, the pharmacopoeia monograph gives the methods to identify the parent molecule, how much amount of, or whether that particular parent molecule or biosimilar is present or not. For that, the pharmacopoeia provides a set of tests for identification of that particular product. So those methods includes peptide mapping by RP-HPLC, UV spectroscopy second derivative, Western blotting, isoelectric focusing, size exclusion chromatography, capillary electrophoresis, and MALDI. So these are all the various techniques based on the product. These methods may vary, number of methods may vary, but these are all the methods basically used for identifying a particular product in the particular product. So here, a small example of peptide mapping is given here. So the peptide mapping means the protein is digested into the peptides or amino acids by using protease enzyme, and those peptides are separated by using HPLC, and they are detected by using UV spectroscopy or mass spectroscopy and data interpretation. During data interpretation, it is compared with the theoretical mass is compared with the practical mass, and then it is identified whether the particular protein is present in the molecule or not. And peptide mapping is capable of identifying post-translation modification also. And this is Western blotting technique, which is an advance after SDS page. Western blotting is done to identify the specific protein in the sample. And next set of tests which are given under the test in the pharmacopoeia, these are all these can able to test the product related impurities. That means the product variants, but that do not have similar biological activity to that of parent molecule. See, protein variants in structure they might be similar, but they don't have biological activity to that of parent molecule. So such type of impurities are detected by using a set of test analytical methods prescribed under the category of tests. So those includes related proteins to identify the related protein, size exclusion chromatography used, impurities with molecular mass, weight greater or lesser than that of the product. These impurities are identified by using ion exchange chromatography, and there are charged variants by capillary electrophoresis SDS and glycan analysis, which is an important technique by using HPLC fluorescent detector. So here in the category of the test, I'll explain about the glycan analysis, because this is the method every regulatory authority requires for this, the data, complete data of this glycan analysis. So what is glycan analysis? That means when a protein is expressed in the host, after it is an attachment of carbohydrate group during translation or after post-translational modification, a carbohydrate group is attached to this protein molecule, to our protein therapeutic. And this happens always in the endoplasmic reticulum or Golgi apparatus. That is, protein is attached with carbohydrate. And this is called post-translational modification. So that carbohydrate group may be of, there comes the differences in the type of carbohydrate group which attaches to the protein. So that is shown in this figure. See, if in the figure 1, there is a set of carbohydrate which are attached, which is approved by FDA. But similar carbohydrate are attached, but in numbers it increased. That is not approved by FDA. So this is to this level of similarity is expected by the regulatory authority. And what will happen if there is a difference in the carbohydrate attachment in the post translational modification? It leads to the lack of efficacy, or it leads to some adverse effect. It may affect the efficacy, safety, stability, and functionality of the product. So because of these critical reasons, all regulatory authority requires for limited variability and uniform glycosylation pattern during manufacturing and scale up. And this is determined by using mass spectrophotometry and HPLC coupled with mass spectrophotometry. And apart from these two, there are process-related impurities which are present in the biotherapeutics. Those process-related impurities are identified by using various techniques to determine host cell protein, host cell DNA, sterility testing, and bacterial endotoxin testing. And these tests are given under other tests in pharmacopoeia. And there are various formulation-related tests. And next comes the potency by in vitro and or in vivo bioassays. And there is a description about its appearance also, which is present in the pharmacopoeia. And complaints to, as I said already, complaints to IP monograph is a regulatory requirement throughout the lifetime of the article. Whenever it is tested, starting from the release of that particular biotherapeutic till its expiry, it needs to comply with the IP monograph. And interpretation of IP monograph, it is not a specific monograph needs to be referred. Interpretation of a particular monograph must be in accordance with all general requirements, testing methods, texts, and notices pertaining to it, which is given in the IP. So here, what are all the other chapters or other requirements and how a IP monograph is interpreted? So in an IP, there is a general notices part, which is blue in color. All the 4 volumes are given with the that general notices part, which is very much essential, that needs to be referred while referring for a specific monograph. And it applicable to all text in the IP 2018. And next comes the general chapters, which is present in the volume 1. Generally, it describes about the requirements for requirements of various analytical methods, general methods which are used in the analyzing this product. So, and these are all mandatory requirement, and this is given in the volume 1. And next comes the specific monograph. Specific monograph, it gives a set of guidelines, set of tests and its specification for a particular product. And there is one more category of general. This is present. The specific monograph is present in volume 3, volume 2, and volume 4. And next is the general monograph. See, there are set of general guidelines, specification for various dosage forms, for injections, for tablets, for such type of various formulations, that is given in volume 2 and volume 3. And this interpretation of a monograph must be in accordance with all general requirements, testing methods, texts, and notices pertaining to it in IP. So, monograph should be read along with these general requirements, general notices, and the general monographs. And this is an example of general notices which is present in the IP. It is present in all 3 volumes. It gives the general consideration for if we are using test animal, what are all the animals for our test, what are all the things needs to be considered. For storage, what are all the temperature needs to be considered, and how to interpret the IP. So such type of general instructions are given in the general notices part. And comes the next is our general chapter. It gives a detailed specification or requirements about the analytical procedures. It might be a biological method or chemical method, even for testing of herbal product, for testing of vaccine, for testing of blood products. General methods are requirements for such general methods are given in the general chapters. And these are all general monograph. As I already said, there is a set of specification requirements for parenteral preparation. So that is defined separately. And for tablets, that is different. So for all dosage forms, there is a separate general monographs in IP. And comes the specific monograph. Here, specific monograph gives the analytical methods and their specification for identification, purity, and potency of to identify, to test its purity and the potency of any product. So here I have given an example of follicle stimulating hormone, which gives the analytical method. It gives the description about that product. It should comply. The product should comply with the description which is prescribed here, and identification, and for test and for potency. And this is a brief about, that's all about the interpretation of IP monograph. And here it gives this slide gives a brief about how the biological monograph have improved from 1996 in numbers, from 1996 till the current edition, IP 2018. And to summarize, IP monographs, they includes a key quality attribute for a medicinal product in terms of identity, purity, and potency. And for biological medicine, key quality attributes often are more difficult. So there are multiple and orthogonal tests are used for a particular parameter. And though biologic products are complex, but they have very good public health benefits are there, and they are more specific and with lesser side effect. That's all about our presentation. And from the need for the day from the academic institution is there is a need for expertise in the domain knowledge. There is a need for research, focused research. For example, in case of biotherapeutics, we can say there are many in vivo methods that the research can be focused on converting those in vivo methods to in vitro methods, and even academic institution can participate in the development of clones for biosimilars. And that's all for today's presentation. Thank you. If there is any question?
Yes, we have few questions.
Yes.
Yes. During this, you have mentioned that the first biologicals are for the non-clinical trials.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you highlight that, means how it should be performed, non-clinical trials and the regulatory requirements, the bodies which are giving the permission to conduct these non-clinical trials?
Yeah, right. Here, non-clinical, before going for clinical trial approval from National Regulatory Authority, there is a need for NOC from RCGM, which is Review Committee on Genetic Manipulation, which is functioning under DBT, for performing this non-clinical studies. And after review of the application, NOC will be, no objection certificate will be provided by the RCGM. And then the manufacturer goes for clinical trial conduction, and those data are submitted to CDSCO.
So suppose, ma'am, if the academic institutions are working on the same, so they also have to go for this body for the conduction of...
Yeah, of course. If an academic institution is... I don't know. Academic institution cannot be a manufacturing if academic institution is having a manufacturing facility, and if they want to go for production of some product, and if they want to go for some marketing authorization of particular product and all, then they need to get approval from RCGM if they are working with this biotherapeutics.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. And the we have discussed, means you have discussed one interesting thing, that is the interchangeability of the biosimilars with the innovator products. And can you give some example, or if you have some idea, the drug which US FDA has given a permission for such interchangeability?
Recently, I think for filgrastim, US FDA had given permission for interchangeability. Yes, that's right. Yes, US FDA had given interchangeability approval for some, I think for filgrastim they had given, even for erythropoietin also they had given. So those data can be accessed from their website itself. From the US FDA website, we can give complete data of those things. So here interchangeability, as I already explained, this interchangeability means whether that particular biosimilar can be used interchangeably with that of innovator product or not. So such type of approval is given only by US FDA.
Only by, ma'am?
US FDA.
US FDA. Okay.
Yeah, US FDA. Because in Baki, if we take an European Union, it depends on different European countries. They have their own. If a particular country wanted to give, they can go for. Otherwise, they are not. In India, there is no such separate approval for interchangeability.
Yes, that's what I want to ask. That in India, is there any such?
In India, it is with the expertise of the clinician.
Okay.
Whether they can go for interchangeability or not. But most of the clinicians, they don't interchange the biosimilar with that of innovator product.
Okay, ma'am. So these are the questions, and the another thing, glycan analysis. We would like to know this further in future about the detailed glycan analysis. It seems really very interesting, and it requires kind of detailed understanding that how we can go with the glycan analysis to identify slight limitation.
Yeah, all these today I have given only brief about what are all the tests are considered, but because I can give detail about all these techniques, because every test requires at least 2-3 hours for explaining.
Yes.
So
this glycan analysis is quite new, and definitely we would like to interact in future for this techniques to identify this small differences in the proteins.
Okay.
And how it's actually working. Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation, and not only that, but explaining so interestingly the entire process of standardization and the standard settings for the biologicals in the IP, innovator products and the biosimilar products, the basic concepts with the students at the student level, particularly glycan analysis, as well the how they identify the language of IP and how they analyze and the interpretation of any biological monograph in the IP. That is really very interesting to know, ma'am. With even the short span of time, ma'am, you really very nicely enrich our knowledge regarding this. So we are very thankful for your precious time and so interesting talk.
Yeah, thank you. I thank once again Abhay sir for giving me this opportunity, and the faculty, and particularly to Dr. Komal for providing this to coordinate with me and helping me in making this presentation. And I thank all the delegates for listening me patiently. Thank you to Parul University also. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to you, IPC Every.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I can leave now, right?
Yes, ma'am, we can leave now. I'm ending the session. Thank you.